So the other day I observed a couple going to the gym together, right? They went in there, they did their thing, they exercised, they left. And they did this every day. It became a thing, right? This couple would go in there together, get it in, get it out, right? You know, I didn't really think much of it, but they would be there every day. It'd be consistent, and hey, I applauded it, right? Well, one day it stopped. They started going in at different times, and the times that they did go in together, they wouldn't work out together. So it just stopped, and I'm like, okay. I'm thinking to myself, and I'm like, And I came to the conclusion that their relationship, it wasn't working out. What is going on, everybody? Saludos, fit familia. Hope all of you are doing super duper well. I hope you enjoyed my horrible jokes, my horrible story. I hope you got some kind of laugh out of it, or I hope you were like, damn, this guy sucks. Anyways, welcome to another video. If you're new here, my name is Daniel, and as always, it is a pleasure to welcome you to my channel. Today, I'm gonna go over 5 things I wish I knew about cutting from the start. Cutting. We all want to do it, right? We all want to cut. We all want to have a successful cut. We have a bulking season, and we have a cutting season, a shredding season, to reveal all the muscle for the springtime, for the summertime. We all want to successfully cut. We all want to reveal those abs, right? We all want to get abs, and we can. But if you're like me 5 years ago, when I say I would be cutting, then you're probably not going to get anywhere. Now here's a picture of me about 4 or 5 years ago when I said that I would cut. And this is me after a successful cut, right? Now this is me after my most recent cut. And this is after all the things that I've gained knowledge about, after all the things that I've learned, and after doing all the things that I'm going to tell you not to do within this video, right? So here are 5 things that I wish that I knew about shredding from the start. So, number 1, cardio. It does not equal running. When I thought about cutting, I thought about cardio. And when I thought about cardio, I thought about running. And I hate running. I hate running. Can't stand it. But cardio doesn't necessarily have to mean running. It doesn't. It can be something as simple as walking. This year when I went on my cut, my cardio consisted of literally walking. It was walking for a while, but I would walk. That was my cardio. I would walk for about 50 minutes, 55 minutes, an hour, right? Progressively overload until I got to about an hour, 15 minutes. And I do that simply here at the park. I have a park near me and I'd walk it every single day. That was my cardio. That's why I burn extra calories. It doesn't have to mean running. So it is not a good way, especially when you're shredding, especially when you've worked so hard for all your muscle during bulk season or just during the muscle gaining season, whatever you want to call it. You work so hard for all that muscle, and then when you decide to cut, you start running. It's one of the worst ways to lose fat and retain muscle, because you are going to lose fat. Yeah, that's true. You're going to lose fat, you're going to shred, but you're also going to lose muscle along with it. And you know we don't want that. You work so hard during bulk season to gain all of that muscle. You definitely want to retain the majority of it. So I advise, if you are shredding to retain the most amount of muscle and burn fat, I advise not to run. I advise something like the Stairmaster. I advise something like a treadmill walk at an incline, or just simply walking, or even bicycling as well. But those are some of the best ways to do cardio as opposed to running. I used to run, and it was not the results that I wanted. Number 2, more reps and more sets does not equal more fat burning. How many of you have done that, right? You say you're gonna shred, you say you're gonna cut, and so you change the way you work out. You used to be doing super heavy weights, super heavy sets. You're probably doing like sets of 5 or 6 reps. You're putting on a lot of muscle, you're putting on a lot of strength, and then you decide you're gonna cut, and what happens is, well, I'm gonna cut. Now I'm gonna do sets of 20, sets of 15, higher reps. I'm gonna do more sets because it's cutting season. That means more reps, more burning fat. But no, that is not the case. When you go into a cut, when you go from a bulk to a cut, or when you make that transition and when you're fully into that cutting phase, that does not mean that you have to switch up the way you work out. It doesn't mean add more reps to your sets. It doesn't mean add more sets to your workout. Because at the end of the day, the gym is to build muscle. And as you cut, you want to continue building muscle, if not retaining as much muscle as you can. If you add a shitload of volume, you're actually gonna end up losing more muscle, rather than retaining that muscle or even building more muscle upon that. So my advice to you is, when you go from a bulk to a cut, do not change the way you work out. I used to do that myself. I used to say, hey, I'm gonna go in a cut now. That means less weight and more reps. No, don't drop the weight. Keep the weight the same, keep the intensity the same, keep the volume the same, keep the progressive overload the same if you can. Keep going hard, keep training as if nothing happened. All that changes is your nutrition, your diet, your calorie intake. Alright, but the training stays the same: intensity, volume, everything. Keep training hard. The gym is to build muscle, cardio is to lose the fat, alright? So number 3, dieting. it doesn't have to be 100% strict. And what I mean by that is it doesn't have to be chicken, rice, broccoli, oats, spinach, fish. It doesn't have to be super strict, disciplined foods all the time. So back then when I'd cut, I'd tell myself, all right, it's time to cut. That means buy a bunch of chicken, buy a bunch of rice, buy a bunch of broccoli. No more eating all these fun foods because I'm cutting. I have to be strict. And one of my worst habits when I would cut back then is cutting carbs. I would say, hey, I'm gonna cut. No more carbs, no more bread, no more tortillas, no more none of that stuff. No more wraps. Why? Because they contain carbs. And carbs were the enemy back in the day. At least that's what I thought. But no, carbs are not the enemy. And super strict, disciplined dieting is not always the way, because super strict disciplined dieting, what that's going to do to you in the future is if you eat that way for a week, for 2 weeks, for 3 weeks, chances are you might stop. Or if you do end up doing it for 12, 13, 14 weeks, chances are you're going to yo-yo, which means you're going to bounce back right to the weight where you were when you first started, because you've been depriving yourself of a lot of good foods for such a long time that when you do finally have the freedom to go back to those foods after you're done cutting, you're just gonna binge. You're gonna binge on all the foods that you couldn't have during your cut because all you were eating was chicken, fish, broccoli. Put yourself in a calorie deficit and eat your protein. Eat 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight and put yourself in a calorie deficit. And I have a video, I'll bloop it up right here. I have a video on how to calculate your calorie deficit, so go ahead and check that out. Super informative, super great video to watch on its own. But anyways, my advice is put yourself in a calorie deficit, right? That is the #1 rule when burning fat. Calorie deficit. You're gonna burn fat that way. Calorie deficit and hitting your protein. 1 gram per pound of body weight of protein is all you need. So if you weigh 200 pounds, guess what? All you need is 200 grams of protein. If you weigh 150 pounds, guess what? All you need is 150 grams of protein for the day. That's it. No more, no less. That's it. And by calorie deficit, do not restrict yourself from carbs and do not eat all these boring foods. Watch my videos. You see the way I eat. In my most recent cut, I ate fairly fun. I had French toast, I had the popcorn, I had some large wraps. I no longer cut out the carbs and made them the enemy. I had a really good cut. It was one of my best cuts, and I enjoyed a lot of the foods that I ate, which allowed me to, in turn, it allowed me to stick to this cut a lot longer, and the results were what I wanted. Tip number 4, the slower, the better. And what I mean by that is the slower that you lose weight over time, the more muscle retention. So I used to think that, hey, all right, I'm cutting. That means I have to lose a pound every week, 2 pounds every week, 3 pounds every week. As long as I'm losing a good amount of weight, I'm cutting, right? I'm successfully cutting. Look at me, I'm cutting so much weight. And 12 weeks later, I'm down this much weight because I was losing 3 pounds a week, 4 pounds a week. That's not good. The faster you lose weight, the more muscle you lose. Now, the slower, the better. So how much should you actually be losing a week? No more than 2 pounds a week. Anywhere between half a pound to a pound to 2 pounds a week is good, but no more than 2 pounds a week you should be losing. And so if you're noticing that you're no longer making any progress, drop your calories just a little bit, maybe 50 calories, maybe 100 calories, but the slower that you cut, the more muscle that you will retain over time. The faster that you cut, if you're losing 3 pounds a week, 4 pounds a week, you are cutting too fast and you're cutting too much into the muscle, and then the end result is gonna be, yeah, a lot of fat loss, but also a lot of muscle loss. And you probably lost a lot of strength as well. So, all right, so tip number 4 kind of leads me on to tip number 5. And tip number 5 is, do not rely on the scale as your only measurement of progress. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, you decide to go on a cut. You weigh yourself every day, every morning, preferably, right? You weigh yourself, and you see the number going down, and going down and going down and going down and going down every day, every week, whatever. You see it progressively going down, and you're like, yeah, look at the numbers going down, the scale numbers going down. That means I'm cutting, right? That means I'm cutting right. Do not rely on that number as your only measurement of progress. There's another tool that you can use, and it doesn't cost a thing, and it's right there in your bathroom as you're measuring yourself, and that's the mirror. Take pictures of yourself every single day. That is one of the best ways to not only measure progress, but motivate yourself every single day. Measure your progress by what you see in the mirror, what you see in your body. Is your body changing? Are you seeing more cuts? Are you seeing more veins, more vascularity? Are you seeing that week by week? Because 1 week you can weigh 175 pounds, and then the next week, all right, after a full week of cutting, it might still be 175 pounds. And so you're gonna tell yourself, holy crap, I'm not cutting, I have to drop my calories, I have to do more cardio. That's not always the case. The case could be, and this does happen sometimes, that while you're in a deficit, you could be building muscle and burning fat at the same time. And what that's gonna do is it's gonna offset the scale, meaning you're not gonna drop and you're not gonna gain. You're gonna be at the same. This week and next week, you may weigh 175 pounds. But the picture you took this week compared to the picture you took last week, you have more cuts in this week's picture. You have more vascularity in this week's picture. Hell, your waist looks a little smaller. Something like that. So don't let that be your only tool to measure your progress. Use the scale as a tool, for sure. And overall, your weight will go down. Overall, it will go down. But don't let it be your only tool to measure your progress. Use your eyes, use that mirror, watch how your physique changes and it reveals more vascularity, all that good stuff, and as it reveals the abs. Alright, so those were the 5 things that I wish I knew about cutting from the beginning. And just to reiterate, just to recap, number 1, cardio does not equal running, and in fact equals more muscle loss. Number 2, more reps and more sets does not equal more fat burning in the gym. Number 3, dieting doesn't have to be 100% disciplined and strict. And cutting carbs, don't cut your carbs like that. Unless you are getting ready for a show and you're at your very last couple weeks, do not stigmatize carbs. Number 4, the slower, the better. The slower that you cut, the more muscle that you retain. And number 5, do not rely on the scale as your only measurement of progress. I hope you learned something from my mistakes today. Take what you've learned and apply it into your everyday life. If you are not subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit that notification, little bell button. That's going to notify you every time that I upload a video. And unless you want to hear another bad joke, that's all I have for you. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I will see you all in the next video. And until then, you already know what it is. Let's get active.